Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Athena's Wellness Wisdom podcast. So, for my first guests that I have on, these are all people that have been major players in my own healing journey. So, today I have Jen Snow with me. And basically, I met Jen. It started in 2021. I had a little pony named Alice. And so I contacted Jen to ask her to do an animal communication with me or for me with Alice. So we had met in person at the barn and she did this communication. And then through it, we can talk more about this after. But basically, Jen's like, oh, like I work with people as well. So I kind of planted a little seed in my brain. And then it wasn't until March of 2022, so the following year, that I contacted Jen. And then I think we did about 5, maybe 6 hypnotherapy
hmm
sessions. So, Jen, do you mind just kind of telling everybody about what you do, like for a living?
I'd love to. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, and Athena, thank you for having me. I do a combination of things.
Mhm.
when and I don't know how deep you want me to go into that. But I know there's more of a build up to how I got to where I am today, but I'll just kind of give the
Mhm.
rundown of what I do. So when I first started my entrepreneur career, I decided that I was going to work with animals, and I went and took some equine bodywork massage training in the US and had planned to never work with people. I know it's always that caveat. I got to get in there because as you get to know me, you're like, oh, um,
Exactly.
and wanted to bridge the world of energy healing and nonverbal connection and communication and animal communication into the world of the horse world and the animal world. But at that time, way back when, that wasn't really a thing. There wasn't a big acceptance or possible like openness to it. So I decided to go with the massage because I thought, well, that would be a great way to bridge that gap. So during massage sessions, I'd be like, oh, by the way, I get this sense, and I kind of just laid it out there for people, and that kind of steamrolled me forward into doing just animal communication readings. And then I had a health crisis happen in 2010. Fast forward 6 years, I ended up finding hypnotherapy, which at the time I had no idea what that was. And I
Yeah. Sorry, toddler.
no, no, hey, I got puppies. They're gonna run in here at some point. Um, yeah, it propelled me forward on this huge journey of self-healing, working on my own personal health, but also learning this modality that my soul was destined to do. Like how I found that was literally the universe screaming and yelling and me fighting it and then me giving in because I take a long time to surrender it. And I needed to change my life because I was blind at that time. And getting around to horses was really hard. And back in the day, we didn't have online sessions. So, you could do sessions over the phone, but it was never at that time that jive with me. So I went in and I started this hypnosis journey and discovered that I was learning something, but I was remembering something. So I now have this blend of two businesses where I work with people to help you unwind what is holding you back, like those loops, those cycles, those patterns, those themes that we can continually get on the merry-go-round and keep going round and round on, but don't know how to get off. Well, I know how to get you off that. I know how to help you dive into the deepest parts of your soul history that you've come to unwind and unravel and break. And then with the animal communication side, I still do animal readings. I still work with animals because um, I could never choose. At this point, I haven't been able to choose. And really, one blends to the other because our animals tend to mirror us and they tend to help us find ways to our own self healing. And so, being able to do both sides of that world, so being a self connection coach and guide, which I love the soul. Like, oh my gosh, so where we can go, the things that we see is incredible. but also to be there for the animals so that they also have a voice, but teaching you how to hear them, how to talk to them.
Mhm.
So that's what I do in a
Yeah.
nutshell.
Yeah, definitely. Like you have such an amazing story of, like you said, how you got into the hypnosis. So, and also what I'm hearing, what you're saying, and what happened with us is like it was the animals, that was our first connection, and then that's what
Mm-hmm.
led us to working together with people. So it totally makes sense that you're two kind of things combined. And yeah, there's, you never have to choose one or the other. Like, yeah, if you're able to do both, that's amazing. Um, so I definitely find like it's fun. It's interesting talking down the animal path too, because like I said, with that pony, um, there's just so many things that even though I've worked with horses my entire life, like it was confusing to me. It was her trust
Mm-hmm.
issues and just trying to like, so many times we say, oh, if only they could just talk to us, it'd be so much easier. And then I remember in that session, like I remember you saying that she was socially awkward, and like right away it was like a ping, like, that sure sounds like me. And then saying, like she has these trust issues, and I was like, ping, that sure sounds like me too. So it's kind of this idea that our own animals are our mirrors. And then I have another
Mm-hmm.
horse, Vinny, as well. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
certain things with him too. Like he mirrors back, and I can even just walk into the barn with both of these horses. Like they're very different animals, and I can walk into the barn and kind of know like how my own internal workings are just by like, are
Mm-hmm.
they coming at me or are they just like, oh, turning and walking away from me. So like you
Yeah.
said, it's like once we get in touch with, learn how to communicate with them, learn how they're reading our inner workings, we can gain so much information from that. But yeah, since you did already mention this whole, how you started, like, are you okay to talk a little bit more about like the time in your life when you were blind and how that kind of
Yeah.
led you to working?
Today.
Yeah, to everything. Yeah.
Um, yeah, absolutely. It's probably one of the most pivotal points in my life where well, I know, like I went through the darkest time in my life that I could ever have imagined. And growing up, I was a part of sports. I mean, my family was in the horse industry. We were part of we raced thoroughbreds, bred them,
Hmm.
raised them, the whole shit. So you grow up on a farm and you get tough in a way, like because farm work is early. There's 365 days and
Yeah.
what I thought built resilience to knowing that being in the horse world, you definitely learn that disappointment happens and it doesn't go the way you think it's going to, and you learn to overcome those adversities in the sports and everything. And just so when I think about it, when it first happened, I thought that I was going to like just roll through this.
Hmm.
It wasn't like that. So in 2010, I got really sick. I thought it was a cold. Like I thought maybe I had like a kidney infection or something along those lines. And me at that time, that version of me had no capacity to ask for help and never wanted to let people down and was willing to sacrifice everything about myself, including my health, to make sure that I was able to do everything for everybody else. It's just because I didn't like being alone with myself at the time. And turns out I was a diabetic and I had clearly been a diabetic for a little while. And my kidney function was compromised. And when they put me on medication, within like 48 hours, I lost my sight.
Wow.
I was actually driving to the barn at 5:30 in the morning. And I'm like, wow, I know I slept last night. Like my vision became progressively blurry within a 2.5 hour span. By
Wow.
7:30 that morning, I had nothing. Like it was a cloud. And I realized then that, I was still trying to work.
Hmm. Poor
And
stuff.
right. Well, they don't feed themselves. So somebody's got to do it. And I
Yeah.
realized that I needed help. So I went and got the owner of the barn, who happened to be one of my best friends. And she took me to the doctors. And at the time, they had said, because they put me on medication and my blood sugars were normalizing, that this can happen and give it 2 weeks and it should go away. Well, you've never seen somebody count the hours as I counted the hours in that 14 days, and literally 14 days and 27 hours. I was like, yeah, this hasn't changed. It's gotten worse. I was now beginning to lose a good capacity of my core sight. And so I went to my doctor's, and his nurse actually overheard our conversation.
Oh wow.
And she actually made a phone call to an eye specialist and was like, you need to see this girl right now. And my
Mhm.
doctor also made that same phone call. And I got a phone call the following day. And they're like, you need to get here. I'm like, I don't know if I can because I can't drive. I can't
Yeah.
see. But I did get there, and my mom took me. And in that room, that doctor told me that I was blind.
Wow.
And the possibility of me ever getting my sight back was never going to happen. But I needed to see a specialist because there was a potential that they could save whatever was left. And at once I went to the eye specialist at UBC, they told me I lost 90% in my left eye, 95% of my sight in my right eye, and that the little
Wow.
bit of peripheral that I had left, they were going to do whatever they could do to save it. And so
Wow.
that meant injections in my eyes every 3 weeks to a month at the very longest. I had laser therapies. I had two surgeries because the blood vessels in my eyes weren't able to sustain themselves. It's called retinopathy. And so they were bleeding. And so everything would go black. And so, um, yeah. And during that process, that first 3 months, 4 months, I also had neuropathy and was dealing with kidney failure. And I was just in this dark hole. And it was actually the
Yeah.
horses that saved me. Like they literally saved my life. I decided about, I think it was like 6 or 8 weeks in, because what do you do when you're first blind? And I couldn't do anything because neuropathy. I was just literally surviving in
Mhm.
this amount of pain that I've never experienced in my life. Like I've been kicked in the head by a horse and had a horseshoe bruise, and
Yeah.
that was way less painful.
Wow. Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, and I decided I was going to make it outside because I hadn't seen my horses. And at that time, I had four horses. And
Wow.
it took me like 3 days to actually make it to the barn without like running into things, falling over things. And I climbed up on a fence, and I wasn't really paying attention to which horse I jumped on.
Oh
I
my
jumped,
goodness.
yeah, yeah, I jumped on my 4-year-old
Oh wow.
in his winter blankets. It was the beginning of like March kind of thing at that timing in 2010. And I was sitting there, I was bawling. And I don't actually know how long I sat on his back. He didn't move. Now, he's a feisty little, being in this world, and he was just planted. And the rest of the horses, they were right, like I could feel them because they were laying their heads and stuff on my lap. And I just cried and cried and cried. But I did decide that day that I would crawl out of the darkness that I was sitting in. So,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
then it became about survival for the next 6 years for me. It was an up and down roller coaster. My kidney function was declining really rapidly. Neuropathy was something I was managing through mental power, but not through medication because medication didn't work. My diabetes was in control within 2 weeks. Like it wasn't like that. That was actually the least of the aspect of
Mhm.
what I had to worry about. And fast forward to spring of 2016, I was at home sitting on the couch, just kind of meditating because I did a lot of that at that time. And I heard this word hypnosis. Now, at that time, when I thought of hypnosis, I was like, oh, it's like people clucking like chickens and humping chairs and doing
Yeah.
funny, weird things that I would never do on a
Yeah.
stage in front of hundreds of people. And I kept hearing this word. And I was like, yeah, yeah, whatever. And I know a lot of people treat divine intervention as, oh, I'm actually the opposite. And I'm sure my guardians are like, why did we sign up for this? So just so we're clear.
No, everything's welcome here. I love to hear it all. Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, yeah, whatever. And all of a sudden, at that time, I lived in the basement suite at the farmhouse, and the power went out. And so I trucked upstairs. I was like, Dad, the power is your power upstairs was not out. I'm like, oh, it must be a breaker. So my dad came down and looked, and everything was perfect. There
Hmm.
was no reason for the entire basement suite to have no like logical power.
Okay.
And so I sat down and I was like, okay, what do you want? And I kept hearing hypnosis, hypnosis. And so I was like, fine, I'll look it up because I was getting mad. And on my little iPhone that talked to me, I looked up hypnosis, and the only school that would come up was Coastal. And I was like, okay, whatever. Well, 6 hours later, I finally sent an email to the school asking if blind people could do this.
Yeah. Wow.
Literally did not look at the course, didn't even like, I was like, what? And so I sent it, power came on, and I got a message the next day. And the owner and founder of the school wanted to meet with me. And it turns out she only lived 10 minutes away. So she came
Wow.
over a couple weeks later. I think we spent 2.5 hours talking about nothing about hypnosis, about
Yeah.
being an intuitive and mediumship and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of it, I was like,
Cool.
so am I in? Like, you think I can do this? And she's like, oh yeah, see you in September.
Cool.
Yeah. So still didn't know what the course was about.
Yeah.
Paid for it
Yeah.
and showed up in September, realizing that I may have just signed up to make people cluck like chickens and hump chairs. And I was like, so I walk in, clearly said that. And I was told to sit down. um, and day two, I got a phone call from my kidney specialist. He told me I was in kidney failure and I needed a transplant.
Wow.
My response was, I didn't have time for that. I was in a course, so I would get
Yeah.
back to him on that, and we ended up disagreeing and agreeing finally, compromising that I would go do more blood work to see what was if it was legit or if it was just a glitch, but I didn't have time for kidney failure.
Hmm.
And walked into school the second day of school, and I was like, "Do you think you can heal your kidneys with hypnosis?" And Leslie was like, it's never been done before. I'm like, great, we're going to figure out how to do this. And
Yeah.
that actually became my mission, was improving my kidney function. And I actually have been able to do that. And through the years of peeling back the layers of my soul and what was creating and causing and maintaining and the whole deal, I have improved my kidney function to the point where I'm still on the transplant list to this day, but I don't need one. And
Oh,
in there, I
wow.
decided to maybe somebody's like, maybe you should try healing your eyes. I was like, oh, never thought about that because living blind wasn't horrible. It was just a different way, and I could see energy. So really, I got away with a lot as a visually impaired blind person because I could see your aura, so I could talk to you like sighted people do.
Yeah.
And two and a
Cool.
half years into that, like from 2016 to 2018, Father's Day, I was able to recover my sight with
Wow.
the intervention of the medical system still. Like, I was still getting those injections. Like, the medical system gave me time to figure out what I needed to do on the soul level, the energetic level, the mental emotional level. So it was all in a combination, and step by step I just listened to my intuition. And I mean, I'm sure my team of doctors would tell you I'm the biggest pain in the butt there is, and I do not promote that, but we all work in mysterious ways. And so yeah, that is how I was able to work with myself, but also helping. I realized that the format that I use doesn't change. Where you take
Hmm.
us is very different, but applying everything I applied to myself, I built this business, this, I call it lifestyle because really and truthfully, I love what I do. So is it a business? Yes. But do I love it? Absolutely. Freaking lootly. Like, I plan on doing that. Somebody's like, would you retire? I'm like, no, this is too good. It's too juicy. Um,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, it's very hard. It's very emotionally draining. Like, there's so much. It's not rainbows and sunshines the whole way. It can be very, very intense,
Hmm.
but it's amazing. And so, yeah, that's how I got here. And I apply all of my mediumship and intuitive abilities to everything I do. And it seems to be creating magic. So,
Yeah, that's so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us.
absolutely.
And so, like, a couple questions that I'm curious about.
Mhm.
So first of all, how old were you in 2010? Like, do you mind me asking
I
when this
think
all
I was
first happened?
28, 29, somewhere in there.
Okay, yeah. So,
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna do
like,
the math. Oh yeah,
yeah, full-fledged adult, and then having this thing happen to you where now you need somebody. At the beginning, I'm sure you need a lot of help, like from your family and everything, to navigate
Mhm.
how you're gonna live your life in this new stage.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Without
amazing.
my husband, I probably wouldn't have got through it so gracefully. And my mom and dad and my family, they were amazing. My dad took me to most of my doctor's appointments because for the first couple of years, I spent a lot of time in the medical system in an office, So yeah,
Yeah.
they made it easier for me to begin to start learning how to ask for help. Um,
Mm,
I was still willing to walk into a lot of walls and a lot of doors and a lot of things to try and prove that I didn't need help.
yeah,
But I
definitely.
was very fortunate that I did have the support system that I did for sure. Absolutely. Couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and so what I'm hearing, and also another quick question just to clarify, how
Mhm.
long was the course that you took? So how long were you
Um,
working in that hypnotherapy course?
the course has two. I took the 30-day, which is equivalent to 2 years of college, but you can do it in a 10-month. So a part-time
Okay.
basis. I tend to dive into things and
Hmm.
I'm a know-it-all. So I actually had read most of the material that they had sent me before I even walked into that course because I like to be ahead of the game. And so,
Yeah,
based on my personality, I did the 30 days. But looking back, I actually think the part time would have been maybe I should have done that. But we
yeah.
all are meant to do what we're meant to do. I was very fortunate because Leslie, I was in her last class before she had to retire. And yeah, so I got to work with somebody that I ended up being so connected to. Like her and I became really good friends. And so it wasn't just being at school. I got to, we became
Yeah, like
like,
mentorship.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then,
It's
so yeah, I got
amazing.
really fortunate that way.
Cool. And then another thing that I'm hearing was like extremely important, and which I know from any kind of healing and work, is that real intention. Like you said, you stated like healing your kidneys was your first intention, and really
Mhm.
just like going all in, like clarifying what that was, and then that's what you work towards. And then you said after the fact is when you're like, oh, maybe I should, change it to my eyesight. So can you just maybe talk a bit about like having that intention to heal and how important that is?
Absolutely. Well, it's what sets you up. Now, when it comes to your anybody's journey, what I would offer as a suggestion is have the intention, but let go of the expectation
Hmm.
and the expectation of when this is going to happen because journeys they weave like a river. They're, very often, even though you might know exactly where you want to go, like I knew exactly where I wanted to go, but it was never a straight line.
Yeah.
And thank goodness, because I would have gotten bored because I can squirrel really easily. And so the expectation is I knew this, and I don't know how I knew this, but I knew if I had an expectation, I would create space for failure.
Mm,
So for me, the intention I always knew it could happen, was going to happen. I just didn't know when or how. So I went at every moment in that as exploratory. Okay, this would come up. And then I would dive into that and go into hypnosis and peel back all those parts and layers and past lives and alternate lives and timelines and then I would sit with that. And then something else would come up. I'd be walking, all of a sudden I'm like, that's connected. So it became this unraveling of the onion, and there's so many layers there. And so never did my intention change, but the pieces of that puzzle, some of them I was like, are you kidding me? That has to do with this? And some of those like, huh, moments were big and some of them were really small, like the residual, like fringe, because you have to kind of look at it as a whole thing. And just let yourself, when you're going through this, in my, again, it's just a suggestion, but when stuff comes up, dive into it. It's coming up for a reason, and its impact
Mm-hmm.
you might not understand at the moment, but when you look back on the journey, you're like, got it, now I see the whole thing. So, and don't get fixated on the end results. Stay
Yeah.
present, stay in the moment, and stay with yourself, because if you focus on what you like, the end results, it seems like it's a huge mountain that you're never going to, that you can't climb, and then you start to tumble backwards, and if you tumble
Mm-hmm.
backwards, you'll start walking again. You'll find a different route. There's always a different path and avenue, and as long, in my experience, as long as it aligns with your soul's blueprint, the possibilities there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, your intention might change too. You might achieve that intention and realize that there was something underneath of it that you now have to go into. And I've seen that happen so many times where people are looking for happiness or peace, or, well, there's a lot that goes into that. It's a very broad intention.
Mm-hmm.
And might need to take a couple different directions to get back to that destination.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. Yeah, so I know for me, like lots of my life, since I've worked with horses my whole life too, it's like I kind of relate things to that. So I know like, and with Alice kind of comes to picture here too. It's like I can have an intention for what I want to do, like in a session with her, like say it's, tacking her up. And if I have that, or yeah, okay, my intention would go in, like furthering her training maybe or something. But if my expectation is like tacking her up and like sending her out on the lunge line and stuff, if I come in and just like you said, if you focus on the end goal, then lots of times it really doesn't happen. Then she'll come in with a whole different energy too. She'll sense that in my energy. So it's like, yeah, having this intention to further her training, but not having that expectation of exactly what that's going to look like. Because I know when I do, when I have this, like, yep, we're going to go in, I'm going to tack her up, we're going to do this, then that's when she gives me like these really big no's. So it's
Yeah.
really funny that way. Um, I do know that you work with horses too, and other like I know like you've been doing some sound healing and stuff. And even when you're telling that story about like going out there and like your first time going back on the fence and just your horse letting you sit on him and stuff, like can you kind of talk to why we kind of seek out animals and how like how working with animals is so healing?
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, every single one of my horses in my life prepared me for 2010. And the horses that were in my life during that process were the ones that I needed to get me through and accomplish things that I didn't know was possible. Like, so I believe that and some animals come into our lives for a season, and sometimes they come for a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like people.
Yeah.
And in my experience, from the work that I've done, but also since I was born with animal communication and mediumship. Like, I came into this world with everything that I am working with now. And I've always known that animals played a role for every single person because they told me so.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those roles were tough and hard. Like, we had this one mare, Betsy, back in the day. She was an amazing race like horse. Like, she won, she did her job, but she was wild. Like, she had the wildest heart, and only a couple people could actually handle her and not getting themselves into trouble. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and I was one of those people because I just was like, okay, I'm going to walk straight and you're going to do your shenanigans. Rule is you can't touch me with your hooves or your teeth.
Yeah.
And that's what she needed. But she was teaching me boundaries and to pay attention because, like, when you talk about Alice, I learned very early on that if you didn't ride the horse you had today, you might as well get off because it's not going to happen. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that animals choose us, their souls make a connection with us before we come into this world, and they come into our lives at certain times so that when we're going through what we're about to go through, or we are already in the mix of the tornado and the chaos, and or we're coming out of it. They can provide psychic, emotional, mental, and physical energetic support that is not just mirroring, like, hey, you got to work on this, but also to celebrate your successes and failures. And I think we gravitate to animals because there is an unspoken communication. Most of us, I don't know, me personally, I would deal in my adventure when I was in my early teens, late teens. I would go out there and I would chat off his ear because when I was in elementary school, I was not a popular person. I was the chunky kid in life, and I got bullied and picked on. And so I would go home and I would tell him all about that. And he was kind of
Mm-hmm.
my counselor, and there was never any judgment. There was never any advice. It was just pure, like, essence and holding space. And I didn't know it at the time. I know now what he was doing, and we laugh when I connect with his soul. But he prepared me for everything. Like, he was my greatest teacher. And I think animals come into
Mm-hmm.
our life to be our teachers and to be loved by us, but also to love us freely and openly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that a lot of us need in our lives, is that true unconditional love of, I'm here, and when there's an animal that's like a lifetime with you, that love is so unconditional. I mean, they do tell us when we mess up, let's be honest. And I'm totally trained by my animals. Like, they got me figured out in a heartbeat. But even the ones that come in for a season, they choose to because they love us. And maybe you're their next, you help them get them to where they need to go and help the next person or find their other person in life. But they've given you a gift, whether you see it at the time or not. And they come to give us these gifts. I didn't know it back in the day when I was like, strong-headed, stubborn teenager and know it all. I didn't realize all the love and support that Dylan was giving me because I was just in it.
Mm-hmm.
And my horse Ike, he came to me in a horrible, like, state of anger and aggression and wanting to remove every single human that got on his back. And he'd do the
Mm-hmm.
two-legged dance. And I knew when I got him that he was either going to kill me or he was going to be one of my greatest successes in life. And it was success that we found. Like, I vented him blind. Who does that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
but that journey of his pain, and I was going through the exact same pain for different reasons. And I didn't realize it till I got into it with him, how much that pain was causing me to project to the world anger and aggression and walls. And so helping
Mm-hmm.
him helped me heal, weirdly enough. And when we had our breakthrough ride a year and a half after having him, it was like all the baggage, all the burdens, all the weight was gone, and we can move forward. And we did it together, and I was a much different person.
Wow.
So that's why I think they come into our life. I think it's why we gravitate to their consciousness. Like we do, I'm doing retreats now with horses and equine assisted
Mm-hmm.
learning and the hypnosis and the mediumship and the sound baths. And it's because it's a collective coming together to support those people who step with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. So yeah, what I'm hearing, like, the main things is that unconditional love that these animals bring that, sometimes people just can't give us with baggage and everything too. And then that listening, that true listening where they're not giving you advice, they're not, trying to change anything. They're literally just there to listen, that's so huge in a healing partnership. And yeah, and then just the energy they bring, and then also, like you said, like stepping together through certain things, through healing and loss, and all that, having that companion there with you, because it could be dogs, it could be cats, everything too.
I've
Yeah, it's
had
just
wild animals show up in my life for
yeah.
10 minutes, and I learned more about myself in that 10 minutes than I knew before they stepped forward, because they mirror for us too. Like, I
Hmm.
truly believe animals take on this huge therapeutic journey with us, whether we realize it or not. And then they keep coming
Hmm.
back when we don't realize it. Like, very
Yeah.
rarely have I ever run into an animal that gave up on a person. I mean, they might get
Yeah.
more intense, but it's very rare that I see them giving up on somebody that they want to work with or be with or help. You know what I mean? Like, they just have
Hmm.
that never ending, here I am.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And that's a great awareness, for people listening to just, maybe take a moment to think about their animals in their lives, the companions, or like you said, yeah, interactions of wild animals. Like we have a squirrel that comes by, and they'll just hang out right in front of the window in the patio and just, like so cool to just have that moment with wildlife. And yeah,
Hmm.
just taking a minute to really be aware of that is so amazing. And yeah, just like kind of knowing that there are healing moments in life at all times if you open up your awareness to it. So
Well, how often
yeah,
are we not present? They
exactly.
remind
So that's the
us.
key.
Yeah.
Yeah, animals are present. Yeah, they don't have the capacity, to be anxious and worried about the future or, kind of depressed thinking about the past and what happened. That is the main thing, that animals are in the presence. And I love what you said about, bringing it back to horses again for a moment is, yeah, it's working with the horse you have today and, not bringing any of that. Sure, they learn and, they can learn things, but at the same time, like it's just walking in there. I think this can be true for any relationship between anyone, walking in there and
Hmm.
just assessing, what's happening in the moment and how that person or animal is at that moment and how you are at that moment, coming in and just being there. So maybe like talking a minute about kind of how do we attain our own presence. Something that comes to mind would be like grounding in the moment, taking some deep breaths and just being there. Do you mind talking to that at all? How we
Yeah,
can
not at
obtain
all.
our own presence?
There's so many different avenues you can go. I think the first thing I would say is try everything and figure out what works for you. But build your toolbox
Hmm.
because, so we're talking about, riding the horse, working with the horse you have today. Well, let's apply that to you now. You are different every day. You are not your yesterday. You can't be your tomorrow yet because today isn't finished. And
Hmm.
so, working with the person you are, the version of you in this moment, and being able to assess that and step into that bit. Okay, how am I feeling today?
Hmm.
How many times do you come get into something and you can feel yourself being overwhelmed or you're like having emotions come up? And sometimes we need to assess, is this mine?
Hmm.
As an empath and somebody who's very sensitive to what you're feeling, or I said, my telepath and my telecommunication is very strong. Like I can hear your thoughts. And so sometimes when I'm not actively paying attention to my gifts and what they're doing, and what's coming up in that moment for me, I can actually take on some people's stuff. So I actually, one of the things I do for being in present is this mine? And I get a very strong yes or no. And I use like not just my, listening to my inner voice or my inner sense, but also I use muscle testing to kind of sometimes ask the questions that I don't want to hear. Because sometimes I want to say yes, but really it's a no. And so
Hmm.
um, I do that on a daily basis. I actually put my head on my top of my head, my feet on the ground, and I breathe. And that brings me back to earth because I spend a lot of time not being on earth. I spend more time in the energetic space, which I don't recommend, and pot kettle black here, because that's my natural state of being. But I find it really hard to be human, just human.
Hmm.
And so that is something I do to bring myself back into the present moment and ground myself, um, and get back into my body because I like being up. I love being up in the sky. I gotta tell you, love flying around. I'm an earth sign, but I gotta tell you, flying with wings is just so much fun. Um,
Those are
the
the
other
best
thing,
dreams.
right?
Yeah.
I know it's physically possible. I just need one more step. I can never remember the last step in the sequence. But another technique that I use when I'm really feeling off or really disconnected or disassociated is I do this centering practice, and I should do it with all my clients. And I just close my eyes and I take a couple deep breaths. And whether I'm standing, sitting, it doesn't matter. If you have vertical, I would suggest sitting because it'll be easier. I don't want you falling over just because you get a little dizzy. But I push my energy out to all the six directions. So in front of me, behind me, left and right, up and down. And by the time I get back down into my home base, I'm firmly connected to myself and the essence of the energy of my soul, my higher self, being in this physical reality and just like, oh, and it really like that one really drops me in deep where I can just like, okay, I'm back. And
Mhm.
so I do a lot of meditation and breathing. I go out and I do walk barefoot as much as I can. It's now winter and we have snow in the North Okanagan. So I won't be doing as much barefoot, but I do go out in the cold. And I also love
Mhm.
cold plunging and doing those things because those things get you very present.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I just do a lot of things. I do tapping. I have this exercise that helps your nervous system. It puts you back in parasympathetic nervous system where you push into your sternum and you breathe up for 4, out for 8. And within 2 minutes, you're going
Mhm.
to be yawning, you're going to be reset. Now, when I start just thinking about doing that exercise, I usually start yawning within 10, 15 seconds, but that
Wow.
really takes me out of my fight or flight. So, yeah, those are just a lot of things that I use in my everyday. I go and stand with my horses. Being
Mm.
with horses grounds me like nothing other. Riding, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have all these tools and more, and I just use them when I need. Like I use what I need in that moment.
Mhm.
Sometimes I journal. Journaling I use for grounding because sometimes I just need to get out everything, all the chaos and all the thousand different conversations going on in my head, and it just clears them out. Like if you have trouble sleeping and you can't ground while you go before you go to bed, writing down everything's there allows your brain to put it aside and be like, oh, now I can rest, now I can be like, so
Yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's so cool to have so many different tools in your toolbox. And like you said, like certain things are gonna work for people in that moment and certain things won't. So it's great to just, yeah, research and see what's out there for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to talk just a little bit about like our sessions. And so like
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons I feel like you were a huge player in my kind of journey was this whole idea of like the grief surrounding my mom passing away when she was 14. So, and even when you're saying about like sending your energy here and there, it reminded me like of our sessions. So we did in-person sessions. And I just remember you had this like super comfy chair, which is kind of like this chair that I'm
still
sitting
still got it, it's still there.
in. Yeah, just and then yeah, so you just kind of guide me through. um I do remember that pushing my energy out and then bringing it back in, and then you kind of like go down the numbers to kind of go deeper down into myself, and then we just kind of just see what comes up at that time. So the one thing that I remember distinctly that really helped shift things for me was like we went down and then we went and we accessed the last time that I said goodbye to my mom. I remember
Mm-hmm.
that, and like and I remember one of the main things you said, and I use this now too in my sessions with other people because it was so huge for me. Was like, what did little Athena need in that time that she didn't have? And it was like, yeah, and so I was able to just like in that moment in our session speak to my younger self as I am now and what I know now, and just like explain the situation that this was the last time you're gonna see her, and then it was like this big hug that we all did and everything. And it sounds like so simple to talk about now, but it's like at the time it was so profound. And I remember then and before our sessions and that point in my life, like I couldn't even speak about my mom at all or any of this because I'd just be so overrun with emotion. So just being able to share this story now is like such proof that there's been so much healing in that area for me, which has been amazing. And with that was like this whole um part of me that the whole like not wanting to have kids because of losing my mom young, and I lost her to cancer, so being worried about like cancer happening to me, and if I died young or something if I had a kid. And just in our sessions working through that, and plus I was talking to, I remember at that time, kind of gave me strength to like ask my doctor about it and to like find ways of doing genetic testing and stuff to see. But then also, like, I know in my research too, is like I learned about epigenetics and like the
Hmm.
fact that even if I have those genes for cancer that were hereditary, your environment actually has such a huge effect on it. And even just stress is like such a number one, has such a huge effect on what genes are going to be turned on and which aren't. So like all that knowledge plus our sessions, and then I do remember so then I decided that yeah, like I'm gonna talk to my doctor, and I just went on, a plan. I came off birth control. So our first session, I have a little timeline here. Our first session together was March, or we had discussed March 2022, and then through, that first, I don't know if that was our first session where we did that one where we went in with my mom. I think it was like one of my first
No,
ones.
it was the second one because
It
the
was the
first
second
one we
one.
would have jumped into just teaching you the process. And I
Okay,
do that
yeah,
with everybody. Like that is like the most, I think the most important one is once you know the process, what we did and how we worked, that just
yeah,
flows after that. Cause then you're not like, well, how is this going to work? What's going to happen? How's information going to come to me?
yeah.
We take all of that
That
out.
makes
Right. So
sense.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the second one, we healed that part. And then so that was maybe still March, maybe it was April. And then I talked to my doctor in May was when I decided I wanted to try for a baby. And she said, wait 3 months. And we were still doing our sessions because we spaced them out a decent bit, right?
Hmm.
And then then in August 19th, um, I think we had done a session maybe a couple days before that, and I
Hmm.
distinctly remember that session where it's like we went in and you're like, well, like where are we? What do you see and stuff? And it ended up being I was like, I remember kind of like being in my mom's womb at that time. And now that I
Hmm.
think back, it's funny because like I guess when we're in our mother's wombs, that's when we create all our like eggs that we're gonna have for the rest of our lives. So it's kind
Hmm.
of crazy that like that little egg that got fertilized, was created at that time when I was in my mom's womb. So we went there in this session, and I just, I kind of remember like I know my mom went to Hawaii at that time, so it was kind of like something like that we were talking about. But anyways, and then it was like days later, I took my first pregnancy test, and I was like, oh, hey Jen, like I remember sending you the
I
pictures
remember,
of it. Yeah,
I
I'm like,
remember that
oh,
actually.
so I'm pregnant now. And yeah, it was just like such a crazy shift from like where I was before our first session. Like, and my husband and I, like, we'd been together 17 years before coming to that decision that we were going to try for a baby. And then three
Hmm.
months later from that is we were pregnant. So it's just like, I just want to highlight the fact that, yeah, we did a few sessions and we were able to, because I was ready at that time too. And then you were able to
Hmm.
lead me there. And, we did like such amazing types of healing to kind of change like my whole perception on life and world and what and possibilities. And then, yeah, so, and then getting pregnant, having a daughter, now she's like this crazy bubble of healing on her own. And I want to like work with parents too, and future parents, prospective parents, pregnant people, because it's like you kind of need to have that little bit of preparedness. And I'm so thankful that my healing journey started well before that you get so many things thrown at you when you're
Hmm.
raising this human, right? So just having that awareness of it all. And yeah, like even though I've done lots of work, like there are still times where I get triggered. There still are times that I get triggered, but it's having that awareness and that increased capacity to take a step back and take a moment and stay
Hmm.
present and understand. And it's been like such an amazing journey so far. She's 2.5. She tried to
I
make an
know.
appearance earlier before my husband went and scooped her up and took her away. So yeah, it's just, the story never ends. It's so amazing. And once we're open to healing and open to changing our perspective on things, what can come.
Well, that's the biggest block, right? When we get stuck on our identity, and how we don't realize that it doesn't have to be like that forever. And
Mm,
catalysts happen. I always say there's always these moments where you hit rock bottom, and it doesn't mean that your life has to be falling apart at all. Like it just means you have these moments of awareness, and the fork in the road is sitting there staring at you, and if you choose not to take it, that's fine. It's going to come back around. They're going to have another catalyst, it's going to keep coming up. And if you never choose to change it, that's fine too. Like everybody's like, oh, I'm broken. You're not broken. You're just learning more
Mhm.
about yourself and you're discovering a version of you that you might want to step into. And you chose, that's the choice. You're choosing to step into a version that you haven't met yet,
Mhm.
but that version exists. And how far that takes you. Like I still do work on myself. I actually sent my friend Jen, who is the owner of Coastal now. I'm like, hey, so I want to explore this. This is coming up, so let's jump into it. And yeah, I may not do work every week, but I still do a lot of work because you still have pieces of your soul's history coming forward. And I don't know. I believe in this time in humanity, we're at this wonderful space where we can be the cycle breakers. We can
Mhm.
change things. And we do that by doing us, like, being the version of ourselves that makes us the most happiest or the most at peace or balanced. And you being you is what changes the world. No
Mhm.
matter where you're at, you're changing the world. And yeah, I just think it's a beautiful thing. So don't be surprised if stuff still comes up because you know what? That version, there's another version out there that's waiting for you. He's like, hey, let's do this. Let's integrate, let's
Yeah.
merge and see what that changes when you look at the world around you and yourself in the world. And that's what you're doing in your work is you're discovering what the world looks like with a different emotional impact or point of view.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, so another thing, I'm just wondering, like, I kind of mentioned epigenetics. I'm wondering, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you could talk a little bit more just about, like, because you have this whole energy side of things, and maybe, like, and even when, so what I've researched and learned too, and maybe what I'm curious with your own healing. It's like you said, you put that intention on your kidneys, you put that intention on your eyes. So it's like really, with the way energy and energy healing works, it's like we can literally change ourselves and the makeup inside of ourselves. I'm just wondering if you could talk to that a little bit and maybe how that's possible, how you figured that out and how it's worked with you.
Epigenetics are very interesting because
Mm-hmm.
when you get into things in your body, there's a lot of information in there. Um, Apparently, updates on my computer are available now. So, one thing I intuitively discovered, so I can't even take credit for this. I'm sure my soul had something to do with it, but my consciousness did not. Was like I went in and sat in my organs
Mm-hmm.
and I asked them what they needed and what they wanted. And I was able to actually talk to the part of me that was in charge of those organs. And that led me on a totally like random journey of getting into my DNA. And let's be clear on this podcast, I am not a scientist. Um, I have studied, but I did
Yeah.
not go and get formal education.
Mm-hmm.
I took chemistry and things like that, but I have done most of my studying now just by reading and finding and doing. And when I started getting into my DNA, I was actually seeing my DNA in hypnosis and seeing where
Wow.
things were lit up and things were not lit up. And some of those things that were needed some adjustment, like weren't told or, as I said, they were dim when I saw them. Was had nothing to do with me. It had to do with my ancestral and generational family and the history
Mm-hmm.
that I walked into. So I ended up going out and ending cycles for my family on many different levels and a lot of their anger and their pain and their history generations back, like not just my grandparents. Like I mean, I knew a lot about my grandparents on my mother's side, not so much on my dad's side, but I ended up in these lives where my soul actually was never a part of that, but I was the conduit that could pull in the souls that were there, that created this thread through all of us and help them resolve so that that thread could untangle itself. Now, caveat to that is I was told in those moments that every individual soul had to agree to release that.
Hmm.
So you break the cycle, but everybody in your family at an energetic level, psychically, if we'll call it, intuitively, will kind of have this moment of letting it go or not, because they need to learn something from it. But yeah, getting into the body and doing body talk and listening and seeing, going into my kidneys. And one thing I do, I don't know how much openly I've talked about this because it's just something I do. Um, I go in and I bring light energy into my kidneys and I visualize in my mind's eye what a healthy kidney looks like. And then I imagine those light particles, those threads healing from the inside out of my kidney, and then the old layer that is the damaged layer, sending it to the light and letting it go back to creation. So, and I have paperwork that says that makes a massive difference. And I did it with
Yeah.
my eyes. I do it with my pancreas. I just have to be really careful with my pancreas because my blood sugars like to drop out when I do that. So I kind of have to
Mm.
lessen the amount of time. But I do that with my body at the same time because I believe that a lot of our inner mind controls what happens in our physical reality. And, I'm going to say this, the fountain of youth kind of thing. Um, I started working with that. How can I reverse the effects of aging? Not because I want to look younger. I don't really care. I'm gonna get gray hair. It's gonna be great. Yada yada yada. But how can I improve my capacity to age with grace in the sense of feeling wonderful and strong and healthier and energetic? And so I started working with that. And again, hypnosis, soul journeys, going back to creator and talking to my soul. What do I need? What belief systems do I have that I've adopted, that I've created, that I've owned, that are putting an impact onto my physical well-being?
Hmm.
And what do I need to know about that? What can I learn from that? And how can I release that so that it's not an impact? It's a wisdom and an understanding. So, yeah, I played with a lot of things. And sometimes I didn't know what I was doing until after I did it. I was like, oh, that looks cool. And I'd follow that. And I'm like, oh, let me look up that. What is that? What just happened here? So sometimes it literally, I always laugh, dumb luck happened,
Yeah.
but it's because I made space for it. So when you get into your body, your spinal fluid, that's another, like getting in there. And I mean, Joe Dispenza talks about this quite a bit, and getting the flow going and into your pineal gland. And like, we know very little about the capacity of our minds.
Hmm.
We're science is starting to open up to the, consciousness isn't in the mind, it's outside of ourselves. And all these things are unraveling now because we're in this amazing time where we're going to be like, oh, but it's like when you wake up in the morning, you stub your toe. You're like, oh my God, it's going to be a bad day. And then you go through that day and you're like, oh, see, told myself. And that day ends up being a day of frustration. But
Hmm.
if you had woken up, stubbed your toe and thought, oh, what else? It's going to be a good day anyhow. And you lean into that, right? So you're creating your reality through your thoughts. Well, who says your thoughts can't help you untangle your reality in a different point of view?
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing. So what I'm hearing is like just the importance of the mind body connection for sure. And and yeah, that, we can spend the time to access different parts of ourselves and really just to ask for healing, and just to ask these parts, what do they need? So it's like, this really feeling into our bodies and just this curiosity too. Like I hear that being like a major
Mhm.
theme here, is just having this curiosity of what's going on with yourself, maybe why. I heard you say something about like core beliefs that we have and maybe how that's affecting our body.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, just like this, so like an increased awareness, a curiosity about ourselves and our bodies. And and so many times I've heard, just like the light, bringing in the light. Light is so healing. Like lots of people talk about, when you ask, what feels nice, it's like that warmth, that sunshine,
Mm-hmm.
that light, and just how important that is. Yeah, it's so amazing. It's so amazing that, like you said, you literally have like documented proof of how you were able to, take the time and heal things within your body. So it's so amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, it's my
Um,
honor.
yeah. There was one thing that I was thinking of. Oh yeah, so kind of on this like, and then you were talking about like you said that perception of your day. You can think towards a negative day or you can think towards a happy day. One other thing just from our sessions that stood out is like I distinctly remember you asking me during this. So when we were doing, I had already started working in the film industry. I remember
Mm-hmm.
telling you,
Remember that.
like crazy amounts of hours, really good money, more money than I've ever made in my life. But you have to work these crazy hours to compensate that. So I remember you specifically asked me one day, well, what would make you happy? Like, if something could make you, like, what would make your life happier, easier, better? And I remember my answer was, oh, I'd like to still be making this money, but not have to work the same hours, for that to happen. And then you're like, hey, let's manifest that, like let's put that out there to the universe. And me, wanting to, and like being like, okay, like I'm all in, like I don't see how this could happen, but let's try it. And then like I didn't know how soon after or what, but there's an opportunity came up where my boss got promoted to a
Mhm.
different level. So then there's changes, and so this opportunity came up where I could ask for this new position that was more admin focused, right? And before I would have never even asked for that position because, like I didn't believe in myself. I didn't trust myself. I didn't think that I was worth it. But I was like, oh, well, it doesn't hurt to ask. So I asked for this position. And I remember my boss being like, well, yeah, like he could tell that I didn't have any of the like, qualifications specifically for it, but he liked me as a person. He's like, yeah, like let's give it a shot. So it was basically now like for two shows with that boss, I was getting paid 12 hours pay for maybe just a lot less
Mm-hmm.
hours. I was getting paid for 60 hours a week and working maybe like 15. When it came down to it. And it's just like so amazing that those two things came together. You literally asked me what would make me my life happier, make my life easier, better, and I told you, and that's what and then this opportunity arose. So that's kind of like this theory of manifesting, and yeah, just like asking for the right things and then putting your mind to that. So I don't know if you could talk to that a little bit too, and
Oh, for
how energy
sure. I'd
works
love
that
to.
way. Yeah,
I'd love to talk about the secret of
yeah.
manifesting because there is a secret. And I'm happy to break the system and put it out there, to be honest, because I think it's so simple. That's what we have to remember. Manifesting is actually simple. Now, I know everybody listening is going to be like, okay. So let me tell you why it's
Truth.
simple. Let me tell you what gets in the way because you get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Expectation gets in the way.
Yeah.
So you had no expectation of how it was going to happen. You just said, this is what I need to be happy. This is what I would like. And you let it be. And then we worked on your belief systems around that because
Mm-hmm.
manifesting is flow. So, you think about a water main, there's these huge water mains in our structural system, the construction world. And if there's something plugging that water main, everything gets backed up, right? A dam, sludge, and they have to go in and repair it, and then things get back to normal. Well, manifesting is just like that, is like water. If there's something in the way, it can't pass. So if you have internal conflict with what you're asking for, and you have decided that it can only come one way, it can only be rich or happy or peaceful for that one thing. You make that water main that's huge into this little pipe. Well, that takes a lot of time for all that pressure and that water, that energy, that vibe to get through to you. So you've actually reduced yourself to this very small connected cord of energy that you put out, and it takes longer to come back to you. And then we get frustrated. Then we start believing, see, I was right. I just proved myself right. I can't do it. So now you have another belief system that you proved yourself right. So if you are incongruent, it'll take longer or may not happen. But if you can go, this is what I need, this is how I'm going to feel, because we are beings of emotion, we create through our emotion. And if there is nothing in the way that you can just throw it out there, and let it go and never actually like care if it comes back to you or how it comes back to you. It'll come back to you much faster because you went from this little tube to this huge water main. And now it can really come and connect to your physical reality. So when you think about things, little exercise for everybody. If you think about the things that you, one thing that you want in your life that is going to improve your life, and you actually sit down and go, this is what I need, this is how I'm going to feel. Most of us have an emotion or a sense that is the opposite. Like we get nervous or we get uncomfortable, you know, there's your incongruency. So you have to figure out what that path looks like, clear that out because it's connected
Mhm.
to your belief systems, your ideas about yourself, with the world around you, and open it up. And also give yourself permission not to expect how it comes. Like I literally in my day, like, oh, I could so use a coffee today. And I'll think about my husband. And every time I do that, he comes home with a coffee. I don't know when he's going to get home. I have no idea.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't even know if he's going to get it, but it's a fun game I play. And every time he's like, yeah, and hey, I heard that you needed a coffee. And he like comes home like yesterday. I was working and he stopped. I thought, and I just randomly thought, oh, I could use a second coffee. I was going to make one, but I didn't run out of time. Well, he got my memo and he brought it home with coffee. It was really cold by the time I was done work, but you know, it's something so simple. And, you know, I'm not mad if it doesn't come home today with a coffee. Maybe tomorrow I get the coffee. You know, I don't really care. I have no expectation when it's going to happen, but it always happens.
Mhm.
Uh, I know it sounds silly to manifest coffee, but it's it's the point that if we can be that nonchalant on just let it happen and you can remove all the stuff that is your brick wall, it's going to happen one way or another. You may not, and again, I never think about the things like if I want something, I'm just like, hey, I need this. However it comes to me, I don't really care. Like I, honestly, as long as there's no harm done to
Yeah.
anybody else in the universe, do I care if it shows up in a box or a bag? Not really. I'm more excited that it showed up. So,
Yeah.
but we get fixated on how it's going to show up, when it's going to show up, if it's going to show up. Oh my God, if I'm worthy and all that. So that junk in there needs to get out of the trunk. And then here you go. Your line is free. So when you come to manifesting, you actually have to be very honest about yourself, with yourself.
Mhm.
Can I accept this? Can I be open to receive this? And if there's something in the way, just the smallest little thing, dive into it, figure it out, shift it, change it, and then go back to what you want to manifest. And again, sit down and go, oh, I can check that out there. Sweet. Thank you. And move on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That definitely worked for me. Like it was so amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's big, smaller. The universe doesn't have a judgment scale of like, oh, you want that? Well, it's a little big. It has no idea. Everything's the
Mhm.
same size when in the universe. So we think things are big, you know. And it's something I struggled with myself was, you know, coffee is not a big thing. I mean, nowadays it's
Mhm.
like $10, so it could be a big thing. Um, but my mind doesn't look at that like, oh, that's really huge. So
Mhm.
that could be something you get stuck on is you're asking for something that might feel too big. Well, you got to figure out what part of you makes that feel too big and unwind that. Like it is the simplest things that stand in our
Mhm.
way. So don't
Yeah.
overcomplicate it. Follow your train, follow your belief systems, your emotions, your ideas, your thoughts about having that come back to you and your expectations. If you can clear that out, the world, the universe is your oyster.
Yeah. Awesome. That's so amazing. Well, thanks for that little tip. And I think that's probably a good place to close this off for time's sake and everything. Where can people find you if they want to connect?
Blended Connections is blendedconnections.com, Blended Connections on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I mean, all the normal places. But my email is snowjenl@gmail.com. If you send me a message, I offer free consult calls. So they're 30-minute calls. And let's have a conversation. Let's talk about what's standing in your way from you stepping into that version of you that you're seeking. And let's unwind it together. So
Beautiful. Yeah, and I'll get all your information, put it in the show notes also. But
perfect.
thank you
Thank you.
so much. This was an
Thank
awesome
you.
conversation and yeah, it was just really great to kind of share a little bit about my story and just share how you were able to help me. And yeah, and just love talking about the animals too and their place in all of this. And yeah, it was just a great conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for your time and your energy. And thanks for sharing your story because it's amazing.
Yeah,
So
so was
excited for you.
yours. I know. Thank you for sharing yours too. It's definitely like, and how you work through it and kind of getting into the nitty gritty a little bit. Yeah, I'm sure lots of, chronic pain too, right, is kind of the
Hmm.
same associate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that's something that you would be able to help people with too and kind of getting into
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
My niche is a self-connection coach and guide. And
Yeah.
I picked that niche and specialty because it means everything. Because once
Yeah.
we get into the flow, the techniques that I have are applied to everything. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. So cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen.